Hello, all, and welcome to this hands on lab. In our lab today, we will learn how to create a zero ETL integration between RDS MySQL and Amazon Redshift. Before we continue further ahead, a couple of things to keep in mind. AWS services used in this lab can incur charges. Hence, ensure that you clean up all resources after completing this lab. Prerequisites for this lab is knowledge of Zero-ETL. Hence, if you do not know what Zero-ETL is all about, please refer to this overview tutorial that I had created some time back. URL to the tutorial is mentioned right here at the bottom. I will also have it mentioned in the description of this video. These are some reference URLs. These will also be mentioned in the description of this video. I would certainly encourage that you visit these URLs as they have additional information about this particular topic. Scenario for our lab today. We need to create a Zero-ETL integration between RDS MySQL and Amazon Redshift serverless to query data in near real time. So we will, of course, be going through step by step, but the intention is to have a RDS MySQL database, create a table inside, insert a couple of records, then eventually have a Zero-ETL connection between RDS MySQL and Amazon Redshift serverless workgroup, and have the data replicated from MySQL to Redshift, and then query it using Redshift's query data in near real time. So scenario is very simple, very straightforward. There is nothing complicated at all. Step one. In step one, we need to ensure that our user has the required access. Access for this particular lab is needed for Redshift, RDS, and EC2. So please go ahead and add these policies to your user. In my case, my user already has access to these services. Go ahead and look at your user. I would recommend that you go ahead and add the full access policy to ensure that you can carry out this whole lab smoothly. Once the lab is done, you can go ahead and disassociate these policies. Step two. In step two, we need to install MySQL client on EC2. So we will be going to EC2. We will be provisioning a Linux 2023 AMI 64-bit T2 micro instance. We also need to ensure that ports 22 and 3306 are open for communication. So let's get started with some of these steps. So this is my console right here. And I am actually in EC2. So I will go ahead and click on launch instances. And let's give a name. So let's say the name is MySQL client. I'm going to copy that name and put it over here in my notepad. And we have to basically select Amazon Linux 2023 AMI. So that's right here. 64-bit, x86, so this is the one. Instances T2 micro, free tier eligible. Let me select my key pair. So this is my key pair over here. It's going to be launched in my default VPC. Public IP is auto assigned. And I'm going to use my existing security group. So that is EC2SG. Everything else is default. So we have completed these 3 steps, and we will ensure that our EC2 user groups has port 22 and 3306 open for inbound access. So let's first go ahead and launch this particular instance. So the instance is launching. And while the instance launches, let's go and look at our security groups. So this is my EC2SG right here. Let me go into EC2SG, edit inbound rules. So I have 22 over here. But along with 22, I need to have 3306. So add a rule, go to MySQL Aurora 3306, and here I've written for port 3306, select source as VPC default security group. So let's see if I can find that, which is my VPC. This is the default security group right there. Okay, and then click on Save Rules. So we have completed these 3 steps successfully. And now let's go and look if our instance is available. Okay, let me see if my instance is, there it is. Okay. Not this one. Okay, this is my older version. Let me remove that. Okay, why is it always so difficult to remove the name from here? Okay, there you go. Okay, so this is my client right here. Let me select my SQL client. It's running, it's initializing. And let me filter by instance state equals to running. Perfect. So this is my SQL client. And this is the public IP address. I'm copying the public IP address. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to connect and log in to our EC2 instance using PuTTY via its public IP address and using our AWS key pair. So let us try and do this. I've copied the public IP address. This is my key pair that I had used. This is PuTTY right here. So I'm going to initiate that, copy my IP address. I'm going to change its appearance. Going to increase the font. Then go to SSH, authorization, credentials. And here, go ahead and select my private key pair. There you go. Accept EC2 hyphen user. And we are all in. So let's clear this. And we are good to go. So we were successfully able to connect and log into our EC2 instance. After that, we need to switch to root user. So that is sudo su. This is the command right here. Hit enter. We have switched to root. And then we need to download MySQL Community Edition and then eventually install the community client. So these are the 3 commands for that. Please go ahead, pause the video and type this thing out. It shouldn't be very complicated, right? So I'm just going to go to my presentation and I've already have these typed out over here. So I'm just going to copy them, paste them in my notepad to ensure that I'm not copying any special characters. Let's come over here, paste this, and then hit enter. So it has now been downloaded. The next thing that we need to do is install. So hit enter. Again, say yes. And that is done. And finally, we need to install the client. Again, say yes. Yes. And it's all done. So we have successfully basically installed MySQL client. So we downloaded and installed MySQL Community Edition client. So step 2 is over. Step 3. In step 3, we need to provision RDS MySQL. So let's go back to our console and go to RDS. So this is RDS right here. So I'm clicking on RDS. That's part of my favorites bar at the top. And then over here, we need to go to DB instances and then create database. So this is create database right there. So what all we need to do? We need to choose standard create and MySQL. This is the engine version, that is 8.0.35 or the latest edition. And under templates, we need to choose free tier. So let us complete some of these steps. So standard create, MySQL community, engine version is MySQL 8.0.35. So this is the correct version. We need to select free tier over here. And then, so we've completed these 4 steps. Then we need to provide a DB instance identifier. So this is what we need to go ahead and do. So let me go here and say MySQL source DB. I'm going to copy that, put it right here under source info. I don't need these lines. I can let them go. Okay. So we completed this particular step. Then let the username be admin. So admin, okay. Provide a master password and confirm it. So scroll down and over here, let's provide a master password. So I'm going to say AD, so capital A, D, M, I, N, 1, 2, 3. Capital A, D, M, I, N, 1, 2, 3. And also, I'm going to write that over here. So this is my username. And my password is capital A, D, M, I, N, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we have all of these steps done. Now we need to choose a DB instance class as burstable and the instance type as DBT3 micro. So let me scroll down further. Burstable classes is already selected and the instance type is DBT3 micro. So we've completed this step. Under storage, leave default values. So default values. And under connectivity, compute resource don't connect to an EC2 compute resource. We are going to provision this in a default VPC, but default DP subnet group. Public access is no. And we will choose our default VPC security group and leave all other values as is. So default VPC, public access is no. Choose the VPC default security group and let everything else be as is. So no changes in anything else. So default VPC, default submit group, and default VPC security group as well. So all of them, if you see, are default over here. Default VPC, default is right here, default subnet group right here where my mouse is, and default VPC security group. Everything else is default. Scroll further down. Then under database authentication, choose password authentication. So password authentication is already chosen. And then scroll further down and then click on create database. So let's click on create database. So the database is currently being created, as you can see. If you get this message for any suggested add-ons, just close it. The next thing that we need to do after we click on create database is we need to ensure that we add port 3306 for inbound access to our VPC default security group and select EC2 security group as its source. So now let me go to security groups. This is EC2. security groups. And where is my default security group? This is my default security group right here. So let's go into this default security group for my VPC and edit inbound rules. Add rule. Go to my Aurora SQL. 3306 is automatically selected. And as the source, we need to ensure that we select our EC2 security group. Okay, so this is my EC2 SG, which is my EC2 security group, right? So if you see, this is my EC2 SG security group. Click on Save Rules. Perfect. So our changes for step 3 are done. So we provisioned our RDS MySQL database. So let's continue further ahead. In step 4, we will create a MySQL database table, insert records, and then continue further ahead. But first, we need to connect to our MySQL database, that's our RDS MySQL, and then eventually go about creating our database table and inserting a few records. So let us see if our RDS is up and running. Hopefully our RDS MySQL is up and running. So this is DB instances is still creating. Okay, let's see if we can see the endpoint for this. It's going to take some time. So give it some time. If it's, if it's taking, it typically takes about 5 to 10 minutes. But otherwise you can click on refresh and see whenever the endpoint is available. So I'm going to continue to refresh on my side, pause the recording, and once the endpoint is available, I will start recording again. So my endpoint is now available. If you can see, it's right here. So I'm going to copy this endpoint in my notepad. Now what we need to do next is we need to connect to our MySQL, RDS MySQL database using the client that we installed on our EC2 instance. And this is the command for that. So let us go ahead and build this command out. So it is MySQL, then the endpoint name, and then you have the port 3306, then your username, which is admin, and then -p, which is your password. So let us see if this thing works. And I forgot -h. So MySQL, right? This is the command right here. Then -h, which is the host name. We have our entire endpoint. Then post that we have our port, our username, and finally the password. It should prompt us for the password. So let me copy this particular command, go back to my client, clear the screen here, and then paste this command right here and hit enter. So it's asking me for the password. Remember, my password is capital A D M I N 123. Hit enter. And we are connected to our MySQL instance right there. So that's the database instance. So we have basically completed these 2 steps. The next thing that we need to do is we need to create a database named company and then a table called employees. Now, of course, you can create any database and table that you like. And after that, we are going to insert a few records in it. So let us go ahead and do that. So it's going to be create database, company. So database has been created successfully, as you can see here. After that, we are going to say create table. So let me quickly go ahead and copy the command. I've already have it typed out over here. Right. And let me go back to my client. So this is my client right there. Paste it and then hit enter. So no database is selected. So I will have to say use company. And if you want to clear screen in MySQL, hit Control and L and it will clear your screen. So now let me go ahead and run the create table command all over again. So this particular table, as you can see, has person ID, last name, first name, address, and city. So it's a pretty simple, straightforward table, and the primary key is person ID. So let me go ahead and hit enter, and our table was created successfully. After we have created our table successfully, let us go ahead and insert a few records into it. So I'm going to copy these records over here and insert them one at a time. So copy it here. Hopefully there are no special characters or anything of that sort. Our first record is for Smith Johnson. So hit enter. Okay, so that was inserted successfully. Our second record is for Jane Doe. Again, that was inserted successfully. And our third record is for Amit Shah. And again, hit enter. And the record was inserted successfully. And let us confirm that real quick. So select staff from employees. And all three records are enlisted right here. So we have basically completed step 4 successfully. If you want, you can always add more records and simply just change the values and add additional records. In my case, I've added 3, and that should be more than enough. In step 5, we will create our Amazon Redshift serverless work group, right? So we will go to Amazon Redshift, then go to Redshift serverless, create preview work group. And of course, this is in preview. So once the feature is released, it may not be shown under preview. It will probably be shown as a regular command. But right now, when I'm recording this video, it's shown as a create preview work group. We'll give a work group name, then adjust the max RPU to 8. So let me go back to my console. This is Amazon Redshift right there. So let me click on that. So Redshift is loading. Now, after Redshift comes, we need to click on Redshift serverless in the left nav. So go to this hamburger icon right here. You can see on the left-hand corner. Click on that. Click on Redshift serverless. And now click on create preview work group. So if you see, this is right here on the top, create preview work group. So click on this create preview work group, the one that you see in this blue ribbon right up on the top. So click on this. Give a work group name. So I'm going to say my Redshift target work group. So this is my work group name. And over here under target info, I'm going to copy that right there. So that's my work group name. And so we have completed these 3 steps. Now we have to go and change the RP U value to 8. So go to 8. 8 is good. And then under for VPC, we need to select a VPC, our default security group and its subnets, and then click on next. So let me go back. So this is my default VPC. This is my default VPC security group and all of its subnets, and then click on next. So we have completed all of these steps. Now we need to create a new namespace and provide its name. So create a new namespace. I'm going to say target namespace. Again, have this thing copied over here. Database name remains the same. And then under database name and password, click on customize admin user credentials. So click on this customize admin user credentials. This is my admin username. And then after that, select manually add admin password and provide a password. Click on next and then click on create. So go over here, say manually add admin password, and we are going to say capital A DMIN 123. Let me see the password again, and let me have it copied over here. Capital A ADMIN 123. Of course, you can give any username password that you like, but I just like to stick to the standard. Scroll further down. I don't think there are any other steps that we have. No. So we are good. Scroll further down. Click on next. Review everything and click on create. So we have basically completed step 5. We've completed all of these steps. Now step 6, creating a Zero-ETL integration. So let's see where if our serverless is in progress. I think the work group is being provisioned right now. So that's a good thing. It takes a few minutes for it to be provisioned as the status is saying it's modifying right now. So refresh. Okay. So let us see if we can continue a little bit further ahead with step 6. If not, we will have to wait for the serverless RDS, Redshift work group to be provisioned. So saying modifying still. Okay. So the next step is to go to RDS and then Zero-ETL integrations. So this is RDS. And then we have Zero-ETL integrations right here in the left nav. So click on that. And then come down. Now it's saying click on create Zero-ETL integration. So this is create Zero-ETL integration. Click on that. Give an integration name. So my Zero-ETL. And let me copy this. Keep it over here in the notepad. Click on next. Then after that, we need to, so we have completed these 3 steps. We gave it a name as well. Now under select source, we need to select our RDS source database. So go over here, browse your RDS source database. So this is right there. Choose. Now it is giving you basically a notification over here saying that certain parameters needs to be fixed. Now there are 2 ways of doing something like this, as it's suggesting as well. Either it can fix it for you, but that will require a reboot of your database. right? That is your RDS MySQL database. It will reboot the entire thing. Or you can go ahead and manually update the parameters. Now, for this particular lab, let's not go crazy about it. The easiest thing to do is you should select Fix It for Me and reboot and continue. So click on this Fix It for Me. As it says, reboot is required. So basically, click on Next, and then it will give you this message. It will show you the name of the group name that is going to change, some of the parameters that it will reset. So just click on Reboot and continue. So now we have basically completed these steps for our source. Now, hopefully, our target is up and running. So, under select target, we will choose our current account, and then we will choose our our Redshift data warehouse. We may face a similar challenge over there, and we will again use the same solution, that is Fix It for Me. So this is a select target right here. As you can see, under target, we are going to say use the current account. See, use the current account where my mouse is right now. And then let us see if our our Redshift data warehouse is up and running. There it is. So this is it. Let's choose this. And again, it is telling us that, hey, there are certain parameters, especially the resource policy and the case sensitivity parameter that needs to be fixed. Again, you can always go and manually fix it. But for this lab, we are going to say fix it for me, and it will do the needful. So we have basically completed these steps. We are going to click on next. So let's click on next and then continue over here. Tags and encryption. We are going to leave all default values. Click on next and then review and click on create Zero-ETL integration. So next, review everything over here. And if you look at the messages, it's saying that RDS is fixing the source database. This is your source database. It is also saying that RDS is fixing the target data warehouse, and this is your target data warehouse. And then let's click on create Zero-ETL integration. Now it's telling you again that RDS is fixing the source database, and this is your source database. And if you scroll up, you will actually get these two messages. It's basically telling you that it's fixing both the data warehouse, which is your target data warehouse, and it is also fixing the parameters for your source DB, which is your RDS MySQL. Now it has successfully fixed the sensitivity parameters and the resource policy for your data warehouse, but it's still working on fixing your source database. So if you get these messages, wait for it to complete. And once it completes everything, as I have mentioned over here, right, the last note right here. So once it finishes everything, you will have to click on create Zero-ETL integration again. And after you click on that, please be patient. It takes about 30 minutes or so for the Zero-ETL integration to be active. So let us go back. Again, it has successfully fixed our target. As you can see, the first message right here, right? And it has also successfully rebooted our source MySQL DB and also fixed its parameters setting. So both of these were completed successfully. So close these messages. And as I mentioned in that note over there, we will have to now go back and click on this create Zero-ETL integration all over again. So now it is creating your Zero-ETL integration. And as it's saying over here, it will take up to 30 minutes for it to create this integration. If you scroll down, you will see your Zero-ETL integration name right there. And just keep on refreshing it or go inside and look at the integration. And eventually you will see that this will become active. The status will turn into active. So since this is going to take about 30 minutes, I'm going to pause the recording. Once it becomes available, I will continue recording further ahead. So our Zero-ETL integration was successfully created. As you can see the message right here on my screen. And if you scroll down, you will see that the status is now active. So basically, we have completed step 6 successfully. Now let us go to step 7. For that, we need to create a target database. So we will go to Amazon Redshift, then go to Zero-ETL integrations, click on our integration ID, and then from there on, go ahead and create a database from integration. So let me switch to the console. So this is my console. Let me go to Redshift. So right there is Redshift. Go to the left nav. So click on this hamburger right here. Click on Zero-ETL integrations. And there it is. This is your integration ID. Right here, you can see it's active. And the source type is RDS for MySQL. And if you can see, under database is showing no database. So what we need to do is we need to click on our integration ID. So this one right here. So click on this integration ID. And it is giving you a message that database creation is required. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to click on create database from integration, provide a database name, and then go ahead and create this particular database. So let's click on this create database from integration. Let me give me a name over here. So let me just copy this and I'm going to say target DB. I'm going to copy this and keep it in my notepad right here. So that's my target database name right there. Click on create database. And hopefully this database should be active soon. As you can see, the status is creating and it takes a few seconds to a minute or so for it to become active and available. So we have basically completed step 7. Now let's go to step 8. In step 8, what we will do is we will watch the integration matrix. So we'll go to again Amazon Redshift, Zero-ETL integrations, again come back to our integration ID and then see how the replication is happening between the source database as well as our target data warehouse. So let me go back to the console. Again, database state is still creating right now. Let me refresh this. Again, refresh it. Okay. Refresh. Okay, let me go back to Zero-ETL integrations. And okay, this is in a preview mode. We had already created the database. So let me again go back and check for whatever reason. It's still saying no database. No, the database should be there. So, okay, let me refresh it again. So if this gives you some trouble, just hang in over there. This is in a preview mode. So sometimes it kind of comes back and gives you that message as no database because it's behind the scenes, as in the process of creating the database. So just keep on refreshing it and hopefully it should be available. There it is. So now the database state is active. So as you can see, the database was created successfully. And now we need to continue and monitor the matrix over here. So if you see, if you go back to the slide, what we need to look for is we need to look for the number of tables that were replicated and the number of tables that were failed. Now remember, we have one table, that's the employees table. So a replicated table count should be 1. And if that is 1, then we can go ahead and query data. So let's go back, and over here, see if you can see replicated tables. It's showing as 1. So our single table was replicated successfully, and the number of tables that have failed is 0. So basically, we are good to go. So now scroll up. Now, since I've refreshed it so many times, for me, query data is enabled right now. But for whatsoever reason, if it is disabled for you, again, this is in a preview mode, just go and click on refresh. And after you refresh, this should immediately get enabled as long as the database state is active. So let's go ahead and click on query data. And after we click on query data, we need to go ahead and select our Redshift work group and then click on create connection. And finally, we will use our database username password to connect. Okay, so this is query data, and this is the screen that opens up. Now, over here in the left, you can see my Redshift work group right here, where my mouse is. You see serverless colon my Redshift target database right there. So that's my work group. Now click on that, click on this ellipsis right there, and click on create connection. And over here, remember we gave our database and username and password. So let's select that. So that is our select your database. So then again, we will have to, I think our database name was what? I forgot my database name. I think this was a database name. And then let's give that. Username is admin and password is admin123. Let me see the password. Okay, click on create connection. And again, be a little patient. So there it is. It's got connected successfully. This is my database right there. And this is our database in MySQL, which is a company database. And remember, under that, we have one table. If you go under tables, you should see the employees table. And this is the employees table. You can actually see the whole schema over here. Just right click on companies table and click on select table. And you will see that the query has been posted right here in the right panel. Click on run. And all of our 3 records are enlisted right here at the bottom. So now you can see that there is a Zero-ETL integration between our source database and our target warehouse. So we have basically completed step 8. Now remember that one of the things that we said in the beginning when we discussed a scenario is that we should be able to see real-time replication, near real-time replication and availability of data in the target data warehouse. Now let us test that, right? So what we will do is we will basically insert a record in our source DB and then do a select in our target data warehouse. So let me now go to my source DB right here. And this is my insert statement. I am going to add one more record and let's call it Nam Shah, and I will just say JFK. I don't know, and I'm just going to say over here NYC. So this is the record that we are going to insert in our employees table. So let's go ahead and hit enter. So our record was inserted successfully. Now, if I come back over here and run this select query all over again, and there is my record right there. So you can see that it has a near real-time replication of data and data availability. So we have basically completed step 9. Now, if you want, right, if you want, you can do one more thing to test this near real-time replication. Now, we have created one table. Right? What if I go ahead and create an additional table over here called as employees underscore new. So I'm creating this new table, employees underscore new, right? And everything is same. The schema, everything is same. It's just a second table that has been created in the same database. So I'm going to go ahead and create this table. So this table was created successfully. And now we will insert one record in this particular table. And let's change some of the values over here. I'm going to say this is 1. This is going to be my whole name. And this is going to be, let's say 42nd Street. And this is going to be New York City. So we have changed the record completely. And this is going in our employees new table. So let's hit enter. And the record has been inserted successfully. Let us see how many records we have in this new table. So we have one record in this new table. Now, if you come back over here, and let's say instead of saying employees, you say employees underscore new, and click on run. And there is that particular record. So not only did it replicate the record and the data and the schema, it also got the table and all the necessary details along with it. So basically, if you go back to my overview video, I've talked about the CDC, the continuous CDC streaming between the source database and the target data warehouse. And even if you make the slightest and the smallest of changes, for example, I created a whole new brand table, it will have it replicated along with the schema, along with its data into your target data warehouse. Of course, you can always go back over here and insert another record, right? And I'm just going to make some very simple changes over here, I guess. Let's just go ahead and add this, come back here, click on run. Again, click on run. Okay, so hopefully it comes soon. There it is. So near real-time replication of data is happening. So this is how Zero-ETL works. Hopefully you guys like this particular feature. So this is it from me today. Do try out this hands-on lab. It's a real cool feature. And as you can see, you don't have to really do anything much. You just have to create the connection. And as long as the connection is there, the near real time, almost real time replication of data, not only just the data, but the tables, the schemas, the databases is happening immediately. It's really near real time. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you shortly in some other video. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.